100 years ago, every American knew how to do these things. Today, almost no one can. We have gathered 15 forgotten farm skills, ranging from hands-on food preservation to working with draft animals, that once defined everyday rural life in this country. Some of these will surprise you with how completely they have vanished from memory. Let's start with one of the most basic. Number 1. Scything and peening. Before machines took over the fields, every American farm boy learned to swing a scythe. The scythe itself was a tool of elegant simplicity, a long, curved steel blade, about 30 inches, mounted on a wooden handle called a snath. To mow a field, the operator planted his feet and swept the blade in a wide, low arc, cutting grass or grain clean at the base. A strong man could mow 1 to 2 acres in a day, sometimes more if the grass was light and the weather cool. But the real secret to keeping a scythe sharp was peening, hammering the edge on a small anvil after every few hours of work. This process compressed the steel and restored its keen edge, letting the blade slice through tough stalks with minimal effort. The best scythemen kept a rhythm: swing, step, leaving neat windrows behind them for the rakers to gather. By the 1920s, gasoline-powered mowers and mechanical reapers arrived, sold through Sears Roebuck catalogs for a fraction of a year's wages. These machines could cut an acre in half the time and did not need the careful handwork or daily sharpening that a scythe demanded. Credit became easier to get, and the old skills faded fast. Today, few people under 70 have ever peened a blade or mowed a field by hand. But for generations, scything and peening were not just chores. They were a mark of competence, passed from father to son, season after season. Number 2. Hand threshing with a flail. Before combines and threshing crews rolled across the Midwest, every farm family knew the sound of a wooden flail against a barn floor. The tool itself was simple: a long handle called the helve, joined by a leather thong to a shorter beater. After the grain was cut and bundled, it was spread on a hard surface, often a raised plank floor or a packed earth threshing yard. The thresher would grip the helve with both hands and swing the beater down in a steady rhythm, striking the grain to break the brittle husks and free the kernels inside. A practiced hand kept up a pace of about 30 strikes a minute, shifting the straw aside as the work went on. Farm diaries from Virginia in 1919 record a single man threshing 66.5 bushels of wheat in a day with nothing but a flail. The trick was to hit hard enough to crack the straw, but not so hard as to smash the grain. Winnowing came next, but the flail did the heavy work. What made this skill so valuable was the way it separated grain cleanly, using nothing but human muscle and a bit of leverage. But as steam-powered threshers arrived, machines that could process over 1,000 bushels in a single day, the old flail was pushed aside. By the 1920s, even small farms started hiring out to the big threshing rigs, and the knowledge of how to swing a flail faded into memory. Today, the flail is a relic, hanging on the wall of a museum, a reminder of just how much sweat and timing once went into every loaf of bread. Number 3. Split rail and stone fence building. Fencing in livestock and marking property lines was not a job for store-bought wire back in the early 1900s. Instead, farmers split oak logs by hand, using wedges and mauls to cleave the timber along the grain. Each rail was notched at the ends so it would interlock with the next, forming a zigzag wall that stood firm without a single nail. In rocky regions, families gathered field stones, stacking them carefully to build dry-laid walls. No mortar, just skill and patience. Oak rails could bear the weight of a bull leaning hard against them, thanks to the wood's natural strength. Limestone walls, thick and heavy, shrugged off winter's freeze-thaw cycles that would crack lesser materials. Building a fence was a community affair. Neighbors would gather for fence days, trading labor and swapping stories as they worked the line. But the arrival of mass-produced barbed wire in the 19-teens changed everything. Suddenly, a man could fence a pasture in hours, not weeks, for a fraction of the cost. By the 1920s, extension bulletins and catalogs were pushing wire as the modern solution, and the old skills faded fast. Today, a split-rail fence is a rare sight, more likely to be found bordering a historical site than a working farm. Yet for generations, knowing how to split a rail or dry stack a stone was as much a part of rural life as milking or planting, a mark of a man's ability to shape the land with his own two hands. Number 4 on our list, milk handling without refrigeration. In the days before electric coolers and pasteurization, every farm wife knew how to keep milk sweet through the hottest months of the year. Cows were milked by hand, usually at dawn, into a wooden bucket scrubbed clean the night before. The fresh milk was strained through a cloth to catch stray straw or hair, then poured into shallow pans set in the coolest part of the house. Often, a spring house, cellar, or even a shaded porch. Cream would rise to the top in a few hours, ready to be skimmed off for churning. Butter making was a daily or weekly ritual. The cream went into a hand-cranked churn, where steady turning for about 15 minutes would separate the butter fat. The finished butter was packed into wooden boxes or stoneware crocks and stored in a pantry, away from sunlight and heat. Without refrigeration, timing and cleanliness were everything. Even in summer, a careful dairy woman could keep milk from turning sour for a day or two. But as rural electrification spread in the 1930s and new health regulations demanded pasteurization, the old ways faded. Mechanical cream separators and electric refrigerators took over. By the 1950s, the art of keeping milk cool with nothing but stone, shade, and a practiced hand was nearly forgotten. It was replaced by the hum of the fridge and the assurance of store-bought milk. Number 5. Root cellaring and winter vegetable storage. Before the hum of electric refrigerators, the root cellar was the farm's insurance policy against hunger. Building one took more than a shovel and a hole in the ground. The earth tube cellar was dug deep, lined with stone or wood, and roofed with grout or double layers of earth to keep the cold out and the warmth in. Vent shafts let in just enough air to prevent rot, while layers of sawdust or sand separated crates of potatoes, carrots, and turnips. The temperature inside stayed steady, usually between 35 and 45 degrees, even in the dead of winter. That was enough to keep vegetables crisp for months. Children hauled baskets down in the fall, and mothers packed each crate by hand, checking for bruises that could spoil the lot. In places like New England, these cellars became a family's pantry from November through April, with logs showing potatoes lasting 10 months or more. But once electric refrigeration arrived in the 1930s, and canning factories started selling jars by the crate, the root cellar faded from daily life. Today, most houses have no trace of one, just a patch of grass where the old door once stood. Yet for generations, knowing how to store a winter's worth of food underground was as basic as knowing how to plant a seed. Across all 15 of these lost skills, one hard truth stands out. Self-reliance was once built into daily life, not bought online or outsourced. When memory fades, so does know-how. The real loss isn't just technique, it's independence. That's the wisdom we risk forgetting for good. Thanks for watching.